The Australian Kelpie is considered the best all-round stock dog on earth, with its abilities taking it from Australia's dusty outback to even herding reindeer in the Arctic. But the Kelpie's origins are shrouded in mystery. It's long been rumoured the breed even has a fair dash of dingo. Now a new book claims to have finally uncovered the truth about our much-loved breed.
Somewhere in the heather-clad hills and snow-capped peaks of the Scottish Highlands, shrouded in the mists of time, lie some elusive answers about an almost mythical creature, the Australian Kelpie. The Kelpie takes its name from a water spirit of Scottish folklore, and one man's quest to discover the origins of this famous Australian working dog in the land of his ancestors has taken him 12 years and halfway around the globe.
That journey took us to the north of Scotland because the Kelpie breed was supposedly bred by this aristocratic breed of dogs called Rutherford Collies that came from Dunrobin Castle in north of Scotland.
Bill has certainly, followed the Kelpie trail, wherever it has taken him and, essentially dragged Kerry along in most instances on that journey.
Kerry Robertson has, for the most part, been a willing accomplice.
That's the thing that I enjoy the most, is going overseas and meeting different people. And that is, to me, is the highlight. I know he's gathering information and that, but I do like meeting all the different people that we've met.
There's no dispute that the Kelpie is derived from Scottish Collies in Australia in the 1870s. But precisely how the breed came about has remained a much murkier mystery.
There was 26 versions of that we had counted of how the Kelpie dog originated and where it came from.
Discovering, gathering and dissecting all the evidence, sorting likely fact from probable fiction, has been a huge undertaking.
That was probably the most expensive thing I did in my life, was say that I'm going to find out just what really did happen.
The result, an impressive, recently published 300-page book, Origins of the Australian Kelpie, is being well received.
He's produced a humdinger of a book. Great credit to him, it's a lovely book.
Tony Parsons is the best qualified person in Australia to make that observation. He's owned and bred Kelpies since the mid-1940s, gathered a lifetime of information and written extensively about them. So what is it that people find so captivating about the Kelpie?
Well, his willingness to work under all conditions. His willingness to be adapted, for example, from a paddock dog, he's been developed so that now he works in the yards and it works to a high standard. The substance of the fact is that we've produced the best all-round stock dog in the world.
Tony Parsons goes as far to say that without such a capable dog, Australia's spectacular path to prosperity from wool would not have been so.
The Kelpie was providentially, like a gift from heaven sort of thing, given to the sheepmen of Australia, and from that time on he's occupied a tremendous place.
Good girl, Mundo.
It would have been virtually impossible in some places to run sheep without the Kelpie.
I've seen them so sore they didn't know which foot to put down because they've got bindies in every foot, and you've got to say, wow, that's a courageous dog. And that's where my passion comes from, seeing him work in the backcountry.
Bill was just adamant right from the very beginning that, this story was so critical to Australia's prosperity that we had this wonderful, well-recognised story of, the wool industry supporting Australia's prosperity, but underneath that was the dog. And so he was really determined that that dog could share in the limelight of the wool industry and, basically Australia's riding on the sheep's back.
The Kelpie may be the most common working dog in Australia, but the breed has some rare qualities.
He's about 14 years old now, so magnificent dog, yeah. And I'm not quite a 100% Kelpie trainer, and he knew it all himself, so he just, I just had to guide him a little bit. Go back. Right back. Go back. That's it, good boy. Push him up.
Mitch is indispensable to Scott Young. So useful, in fact, that Mitch is one of just 2 Kelpies that help manage a large livestock operation at Ballan, west of Melbourne.
2 dogs is a lot cheaper than 2 people, and they don't complain, and you look after them and they look after you.
Never say die, never give in. They have a ton of grit. They're a great dog.
Mine work until they fall over virtually. Yeah. They just won't stop.
The Australian Kelpie is a great icon. Whether you know dog types or you're a city person, if you've heard of a Kelpie, straight away you think of an Australian working dog, and they are an Australian icon.
It's always been rumoured that the dingo was crucial to the breed's development. Bill Robertson believes that science now proves it so.
I decided that I'd get the University of New South Wales to do DNA testing on some foundation bloodlines.
Bill Robertson paid for the tests, and the chief geneticist, Alan Wilton, conducted them.
The final analysis was that there was between 3 and 4% dingo markers in the Kelpie strain, and those dingoes were both from Fraser Island and mainland Australia.
So when did the dingo genes come in?
The dingo infusion happened right at the very beginning with the first bitch called Kelpie on Warwick Homestead in Casterton in 1870. Her mother, a bitch called Bess, this has never been mentioned, but a bitch called Bess was mated to a dingo.
In 1860, the Western Victorian newspaper, the Hamilton Spectator, encouraged settlers to poison dingoes. The method required a female sheepdog on heat to be tethered to a tree at night. She would lure dingoes to poison baits placed just out of her reach. The menacing dingoes would eat the baits to deadly effect. But sometimes the sheepdog proved to be more attractive. As a consequence, she would be mated to a dingo.
Warwick Station in Western Victoria is acknowledged as the breed's birthplace. The property was renowned for its fine collie sheepdogs derived from Scottish bloodlines. But why has there never been any mention of a dingo?
In those early days, to own a dingo, to have anything complimentary about a dingo, it was treason. And there's authors who have actually stated that.
Seen as the scourge of sheepmen, most states had serious penalties for possessing a crossbred dingo. And so, says Bill Robertson, the real Kelpie origins were a much guarded secret, though the imprint of the dingo is unmistakable.
It was the spirit, the grit, the ability to handle the heat, and the never say die characteristic.
The legend runs that Irish-born stockman Jack Gleeson, who worked on Warwick Station, secretly swapped a fine horse for a pup called Kelpie, had her mated with a collie called Moss, and the bloodlines of those highly prized pups soon spread near and far. Kelpie is commemorated in bronze in Casterton, but Tony Parsons says parts of the story still don't add up.
How the Kelpie came to be short-coated and prick-eared so quickly, it's not because of the dingo, because there were no dingoes in Scotland. But they came out here, a lot of them prick-eared and slick-coated, so there had to be some dog responsible for them, which was different from the ordinary collie. I mean, I'm not saying that dingoes weren't used subsequently, and the DNA proves that they were, but a lot of those dingo crosses didn't occur until 50 years later, in the 1930s. So, and not all the Kelpies would show dingo in their DNA.
Tony Parsons believes there's another mystery ancestor, perhaps a German shepherd, somewhere in those Scottish collies that has yet to come to light. Bill Robertson says he's happy to follow any new leads his book might throw up. Besides, he's used to proving people wrong. His early working life was spent as a shearer, in the footsteps of his father. Some declared he'd never do much good, but determination and skill took him to the top of the trade. In 1974, he was named Australian Shearer of the Year and set a world record for the number of merino sheep shorn in an 8-hour day.
I shore 421 in 7 hours, 48 minutes. And the previous record was 411.
He said he would like to do it in the shearing shed under normal working conditions.
Several years later, a serious workplace accident ended his shearing career.
The hand piece locked. A piece of steel went in between the comb and the cutter and it broke his scaphoid bone. The scaphoid takes a long time to heal. I think it was some 9 months while it was in plaster. So that virtually ended his shearing career.
By then, Australian shearers had adopted the wider shearing comb. Some were struggling with it, so Bill Robertson made a training film. It was a bestseller, and it launched him into video production.
The comb must be sharpened with a firm, even pressure.
Then, after making a documentary about the Kelpie, the next logical step was a book.
He's an extremely tenacious character, he's extremely determined, and he shows that not just in what he's achieved in the past, but how he's gone about this process, and also then now his battle with cancer as well.
He had his stomach removed a few years ago because of cancer, and now it's in his liver. Because of his health and the fact that he's never drank, he's never smoked, his chemo results are very good. The cancer is it's going down, and he's putting on weight, which is wonderful, and I'm sure he will be around for quite a while. He has to be. I've been with him for over 50 years every day, so we work together, so this is just another one of our journeys.
Bill Robertson makes light of his ill health.
I've had health problems that have been distracting, but apart from that, I'm a reasonably determined person.
Well, I suppose a fellow who could shear over 400 sheep in a day would have to be a very determined, very capable fellow, and I think he's put a lot of that endurance ability into the book because there is a lot of work in it, there's a lot of referencing in it, and under the circumstances, I think it's a tremendous book for Australia, and it should endure through the ages.
Dog breeding has forever been a highly secretive world of intense commercial rivalry. But Bill Robertson is confident he has shed some new light on one of the great Australian mysteries, the real origins of this much-loved breed.
It's now considered the definitive version of the Kelpie history, and I'm quite excited by that, yes.